they care about out of what you're planning. And this is what we're going to try and work through. Then, if you're a district library, a township library, you're going to publish after they do, because you don't have to have your budget done until August. You guys, the city is going to have to do their budget in early. I sense a change coming on. They're going to have to. So how do we, can we X out this again?
Yeah, just there you go.
All right. What we have down here is, if I'm saying in July through August, you need to go get all pages of the library budget. You can't find it online in July or August this year. But it's public record, so when they budget, just ask them for a complete set of the city budget page budget, and I'll show you what pages to pick out. That is take you out to what city budgets are, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit. Yeah, that's a piece. This is the piece I think a lot of you don't do, or I don't know you should do. Is in November or December, depending on when you have board meetings, what you're going to be looking, what you're going to get ready for this meeting is, what are those predictions I made? How's my year playing out? I'm going to have a better handle on how much money I think I'm going to have carry over. I can't change the total dollar amount of the budget, but I will change some of how much I put in the pocket. I think I need more money in utilities, and I'm going to have to take it out of travel. I can really adjust those media pieces. Okay. So more okay, so what's the next page? Things you need. You don't need. Let's try it again. Did I fill the battery already?
No, the laser's working. Just get back in.
Okay, go off the top. So that's easy. I think no, stop for lunch. No, please close up. So, questions to ask yourself on the next page are, look at last year. There were the questions you need to have these discussions in these board meetings. You haven't had any yet. You've got a lot of ground to cover. This year, compare your costs to your income. Next year, what are things you want to do, and how much are you going to be able to allot to them? This. Yes, no. Okay. I like this question. It is from Overshow. If you've been in a heavy shutdown, you have to cut back. I was in a budget meeting at a library, and I don't know. This question came up shortly thereafter. It just resonated for me because basically, what programs will have to be cut? It's story time. No, we won't get story time. And one of them says, actually, teens would be okay. Yeah, we don't really like them. They're rude, they're always texting and booking spaces. So then they start up a chart, kill the teens, kill the teens. That's just humor, make them laugh after lunch. So, going on to the next thing, I always look at 3 years. You could do 5,
Because see, I kind of keep a rolling 3 years. As you're the one tasked with preparing the budget, as you're sitting down, look at what it was in 2015, what it was in 2016, those are actual. Where do you think 2017 is going to play out? Either for income or expense. It works the same way both times. So you're looking to see, what are my trends? Did it spike any one year? Is it going up? Is it going down? And this is, you do this for income, you do this for your expenses. The end result is, after you thought that through, you're going to have an idea. And I'm saying, do not convert this to mills. We're talking dollars here. Okay? And get that paid. So, are your numbers going up? Are your numbers going down? Do I have a new thing I want to kick off? A new service I want to start? Where am I planning to stick with? We're starting to think of building a budget. I did a whole talk on the myths around library funding, but this one is one that cities play with a lot. You can get a lot of money from somebody else, and outside the norm, where it's actually I liked on a budget, talked about the core functions of the library. It's a public library, and those are public responsibility. I think that's a good way to think about your services. How much do I need from my municipality? Well, I think for one thing, they darn well ought to be able ultimately to cover 100% of your salary expenses of the library. I think that's your, if you can get over that, good. But if you could get 65% of the budget paid with tax dollars, you're doing pretty good. You think about that. So the ultimate goal is, the most important thing in my library are the people, because they facilitate everything else that happens with the materials, with the quests. They're the most important thing in any organization. If I'm a public entity, public tax dollars ought to cover that. That's a discussion point. So define your core library functions in order of importance. Think about it accordingly. Gilbert has a lot of good, I never put these out right away because I'm done with that permissions. It's an educational exemption. Okay. I love it. Enough said. My favorite one when Jim was my director was when the Hair Secretary would go in and say, "Here, sign this." And he said something like, "It's my death warrant," or whatever. Budget is something nobody wants to claim responsibility for because it makes you tired when you say the word budget. You've got an insomnia cure, but you have to do it. And you have to do it multiple times every year, and it happens every year. Okay. I picked this budget, and I gave you a printout of it, I think a 4-1, in your handouts. You can't see all the color here, but in this column for this is Osage City, by the way, and I twisted their arm because they're my library. So this is the income side of her doing budget planning, and she doesn't start obviously with color coding, and she didn't see they didn't have as many taxes back then. She lumped her motor vehicle all together. But she has a general fund, she has an employee benefit fund that has a levy. But as a library, I'm not talking internal document, it's all combined in one. All right? So she figured out this column first. got taxes. It's got the taxes. Here you see the taxes for the general fund, the taxes for the employee benefit fund. These are other sources of income. A lot of you have the same sorts of funds of income. State aid, copiers, taxes and fees, grants. You might get money every year from a foundation you know about. This gives you the age of this Ken Ed. That died. But, you know, these are things you know you're going to get money on. Capital Improvement Fund interest, she thinks it's going to be about that much in that year. That's kind of back when you were getting some. This was miscellaneous income and interest. Here is where she's showing income to the Capital Improvement Fund. The intent is to transfer $3,000 to Capital Improvement Fund. So here's what she's saying. She starts this very first line. How much money do you have in the bank in each one of these funds? This one, this one, this one, and this one will all be in your bank account savings and checking, pretty much, because they need to be your most liquid money. This one is going to have a variety of bank accounts depending on which one. But this is the money that they hadn't, that's their cash carryover, folks. Money in the bank at the start of the year. It all down here, she's saying, so from here to here, she thinks she's going to get $159,607. And the cash on hand and the cash coming in, she thinks she'll run $183,000 through library that year. Now, these are the expenses. And I'm going to keep flipping this back because I'm going to make you do some of these things on paper since I left my Excel spreadsheet at home. I did get one recreated. You see the categories there? I'm sure you have a lot of those in common. What do you report to your board? You know, notice the all-in total expenditures is $166,267. The net result, you go back to this one. That's why I have you have the whole page. And you've got these. And you go down here and you subtract these. She's projecting a cash flow carryover in each fund. That's how you should budget. That's how I would recommend that. I don't care what documents you go through, but you should be able to put it on this kind of format and have an idea. Okay, I'm planning to have this much money left over. Is it enough? Is it 2 months of expenses? Not then. You know these things that you have to ask yourself. So I'm going to show you another one that's really much simpler. And she was building a narrative. So if you notice the blue things up here, she's tied the salaries, telephone, her internet connection, technology, janitorial supplies, building maintenance, and library insurance. So that is her baseline for her story, for the library's story going to the city council. I'm using your tax money for these 4 functions. And I'm telling you, if you can just get salary, I'd be just looking at my heels. Salary and benefits, if you can get that covered, you're doing really well. Then you could add some of these other things, but each one of those is a narrative point, part of the story we'll talk about later. So that's the master plan. If you go back and you look at your budget, you might try to convert it into that kind of format. Here's another one that we did with the librarian account, which is in my system. And this is how she initiated the discussion with her board. Because as I said earlier, if your board isn't talking about the same set of apples, it's confusing. So this gives definitions of each thing. I thought I did. Is it on?
Yes, it's in the handout.
I think it's in the handout.
It's in the bunch.
I don't think I gave you a big version. If you want me, I'm gonna give her the PowerPoint, she can send it. It's in your PowerPoint, your big
On page
hairy
19.
packet. The gross hairy packet, I should have.
Okay.
But anyway, my whole point here is this is a way of initiating the discussion with your board, so you agree. You know, I would put down here a better definition than I thought she did, but the principle is a good idea for discussion. Making sure when you say building supplies or automation and maintenance, what does that mean? Does that mean Pathfinder fees? You know, maybe it should just say Pathfinder fees is the account name. It'll help you decide, do I need to change the account name or did I put in the definition? Happy board, happy life. So that's another example of things. There is the carryover initiative. I give you those definitions. It includes petty cash, even if it's kept on site. It doesn't have to be in a banking institution to count. It's a bank account. It's a kind of a bank account. If you have the legally established, that has to have a beginning and an end. The difference in the capital improvement fund is it's your best guess, and whatever happens, happens. It doesn't matter. There's no, you're not breaking the law if you don't transfer money in. You're not breaking the law if you spend more than you thought you were going to spend, or you don't spend as much. It's just the same exercise applies to all. Okay? The employee benefits and the general fund are in the same bank account, written on one check, but that's why you have to do fund accounting so you can split what goes in which pew or pocket. Am I making sense there? Carryover is something you have to have because you don't have tax dollars immediately available on January 1.
How many of you do carryover?
Well, they all,
Next year, so
you all have,
it now.
you have some money in the bank.
Yeah.
That is your carryover.
Okay.
You may not think of it that way. You may actually try to balance your income and your expenses. And then what you're doing is the money in the bank is your permanent carryover. You know, you can look at it that way too. But I would never carry over more than 2 months worth of expenses. We were talking at lunch about an organization that has $100,000 in the bank. They have no idea what they're going to use it for. I would quit polishing the money. Either give the members a dues refund. Can't pay for anything else. Don't collect money with no purpose. Don't save money with no purpose. It's okay to have a rainy day fund. That's what that savings account is for. You can use your capital improvement fund as a little bit of a rainy day fund, but it's a designated purpose. The goal of a government entity is not to accumulate money. That sounds funny, doesn't it? But it's true. I mean, for no purpose. Yes, sir.
Never mind.
Well, you know, if they're building an arrangement you have with your city, if they use the maintenance on your building, then it's not so much of a key. If you know that you're responsible for your roof, the library, and
Well, so that's money in your rainy. You know what it's for. It's got a name.
a roof for an air conditioner, we're talking about a lot of money. So you do need to kind of look at your system and decide what is a good amount of capital there.
You have to, that little section of training you go through on facilities, that's why you go through it on facilities. You have to know the age of, what's your tech plan? How old is my computer equipped? Do I have software that I should be looking to upgrade or change? You have to, those are all part of making a budget. But the big thing is you have to have money at the end. So you take the money in the bank that you have at the end of the year, plan. And so when I'm doing 2018, I have to do something that's really, oh my gosh, yes. How much money do I think I'll have in the bank at the end of the year? That's your first big guess. And that's called doing a cash flow analysis. And for you guys, I would just kind of look at what I've had in the bank for the last 3 to 5 years and try to hit the average. We could do a real cash flow analysis. It's going to take more pain and energy than you want to spend. I'm just saying. But you know you're going to have some money at the end of the year. How much do you think you're going to have? So I would figure out what 2 months of next year, what the average of the first 2 months of the year is, and I'm going to have that much money involved, and I'm going to have to back figure, so I end up there. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. We're going to do a budget exercise, and I'm just going to have you, this is for your own purposes, so if you have questions, you can ask. Take your notes. Note paper. If I asked you to start with a budget, why don't you just start writing down? For most of you that only have a general fund, how much money did you have in checking and savings? Just grab a number. This is all a guess, but I want you to make educated guesses. What type of income, I'll go back to this slide. We'll start with, so you've got a cash balance. For those of you that have an employee benefit fund with a levy, if you have a separate levy for your employee benefit fund, which most of you don't, you need to figure out how much money you'll have there. Plan on having $2,000 or less. It's just a little exercise. What sort of income do you get? Do you always get $500 from Walmart? What sort of money comes into your library? Do I get on average $200 in donations over a year? I'm not saying going crazy, but if you put down your first impressions and then you go back and check, you might be surprised how close you are. Don't worry about taxing piece of that. I'm going to show you where to go find that later, but you could write, know that I want you to have what I had on that earlier form, all those different kinds of taxes. I'm going to show you Mankato's actual filed tax forms, their state budget for this year. They're in Apple. They're not here, but you just tell her. It's public record. Okay? So as you fill these in, I'm more interested in the list you're going to come up with here. You think about it. I want you, this is everything. The thing is, the internal library budget that the board works with has all the numbers. The key is your city doesn't want them all. So don't waste time giving them all. Because what happens is if you get a system grant and it looks large, I go, there's more money from them, or don't get it from taxes. You're like, it doesn't work that way.
So would you lump all of your grants, your system grant and any other grants you got together?
So you can.
Or you can separate them
You
out?
can separate. It's whatever works best for you. I would probably split them to me. But, because I know what my system grant is. I mean, that's a question we answer every year for boards. How much am I gonna get next year? Well, I want you to think about your stuff in that way. And then you can go back and do any old thing you want, because we're not gonna spend much time. I just wanted to get you the idea and have you write it down on the pages to go. The key here is, I don't find most libraries have a decent written budget in any format. And I don't care if you do it in pencil and pen on plain paper, lined paper, in an Excel spreadsheet, but the math needs to add up. And you need to be able to have serious discussions about it.
What if you're reckoning, like you had other income? We have a major fundraiser, you know, it's the same thing every year. And so we could just put it as,
It's something you know you're
Hunter's
gonna do,
breakfast.
you're
Yeah.
gonna make a guess, and maybe you lowball a little bit.
so what we did is we have the income and then we have
The expense rate,
expenses
yes.
too. Okay,
Because
good.
that fundraiser has expenses.
So we did it right.
Yes, you did. So down here in expenses, you know, you're not getting any E-rate money. That's something else I did. E-rate, you get E-rate, and you get E-rate money back, or you get it off your phone bill. Oh, so you get it with the internet, you get it on a bill, and phone with your check back. Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you that you're, in the last year, I think you're getting any money back. If it's for I would ask for money back from the internet provider, not a reduction of my bill. And the reason why is I may be shorting myself if E-rate were to go away, which you could at the stroke of a pen. And I have the full cost of E-rate as the internet to pay for, and I haven't been budgeting enough. Oh, you're good. But I would encourage my libraries to put full cost of internet and expenses and put E-rate up here as income and ask for the money back from the check. 2 cents. You can make this as detailed or as large. You know, you could have collection here and underneath books, magazines, media. You can do it any number of ways. There's no one way. It has to be the way that you and your board are happiest with. Insurance is another thing. You have to know who pays what. That's often one of the under the table arrangements with the city. The city pays for the property insurance for the building if anything should happen to the building. They don't cover your contents. So have a real clear picture of what sort of insurance liabilities you have. If you're large enough and you can afford it, I would recommend a sort of directors and officers coverage for your board. For liability, will make it easier in some cases to get board members. City commissions and city councils have them. Because you know what happens when you fire somebody, you're in the city and you fire a police officer, you know what happens sometimes that they do. And if you're on the city council, you know when they come to serve those papers, they don't take them to the city, they take it to every city council member at home. They sue the institution and each person. And that you need that kind of coverage. I hate to even say that, but you really do. And it doesn't have to be very expensive. Ask around. I would recommend that kind of coverage. You also need general liability coverage for the people in your building. You also need content coverage. Your city may be paying it all. Find out nicely. So if they're just paying it all, they don't like start billing you for it. These are obviously employee benefits, and they have a retirement plan, and they have health insurance in that library. They're very lucky. Very fortunate. So as you're building your budget, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to talk about district libraries. We don't have one in the room, so if you're in on Zoom and you're a district library, know that these handouts kind of address life for you. The big difference is if you're a district library, you are on your own. When the air conditioner goes out, there is no Sydney to help rescue you. So they have to look at things. They build up balances that are maybe a little larger than you might have to, depending on your circumstance. That's just, this is the authority for a district budget. Their timeline is like the system's timeline. They will have a budget finally approved in August. Do you have a budget hearing in August? You do? Don't you? Good. But anyway, so their schedule is just a little bit different. They don't have to levy through a sleeve. They establish what they need, they levy for it. You establish what you need, it goes on the city budget. And that's where all the conversations happen. These are publication dates. The only thing that's really important is that your city, and they'll be doing this in July this year. I think most of them the end of June, early July, is you have to have 10 days between the time you put that notice of budget hearing in the newspaper and the time you actually hold the hearing. That's, this other stuff is mentioned, but you can negotiate that. You'll see that notice come out in the paper, and you need to make sure that what they are showing there for you for property tax is what you asked for, by golly. Of course, it's a little, I mean, you really should see it before it goes in the paper, but otherwise, you know, it's time to panic. Okay. My last sense of humor. Annual, it's annual. I can't help it. All right, your budget and their budget. All right. What income? These are questions you need to ask yourself over and over and over again. Am I giving them what they need and not more than they need? Because you start to lose them. Sometimes you can get into questions. If you didn't bring it up, you wouldn't have to answer. So know what they want in income and expenditure. And know that they're not going to take the care of separating out each expenditure when they put it in their budget. They're going to lump it under one word. It'll say library, expense. You sweat bullets over it. They grab the number and they go. But the thing is what they want and when they want it. Pretty please with sugar on it. Take them out to lunch, give them cookies. Good time to feed them. They're stressed. So this is as part of the government thing. This is what is a mill. You remember the Schoolhouse Rock thing? I used to sing this too. Anyway, the one they did on the legislature, they did one where they talked about the mill and their song. And I know I'm not singing it. A mill is 0.001. So if you look at what they assess the value of your house for tax purposes, which is not near as much as you'd sell it for, like 12%, 50% of what the actual value of the house is. And you took that times 0.001 or however many mills. So if you're in a community with 3 mills, you take the tax value of your house times 0.003. So 1 mil is expressed as 0.001. Yeah, I'm happy to go out and look at the budget sheets. I go, depending on what level of geekitude you want to exert, there are some really interesting things. They talk about the mills in little boxes off to the side on those state budget sheets. So if yours are in Excel, you can look at it. So they go in, key thing to know is property tax and ad valorem tax are the exact same thing. So on the legal document, the state budget tax form, it's called ad valorem tax. It's your property tax. They do this in the summer based on an estimated valuation. So under the estimated valuation, when it gets published, you may think you're asking for 3.2 mils. And if the final valuation by November 1st is higher, you may find out that they're only levying 3 mils for your library. But it's the same dollar amount. That's why you guys focus on dollars.
So explain valuation.
Okay. Well, I will in just a minute. I'll use the Mankato for an example. All right. This is the header for budget year 2018. And this is the first year for 2018 that they're basing the, they're saying if you don't want to have an election, you have to come in dollar-wise equal or under to the CPI rate of 1.4%, which takes, I think it's 5 different indexes. Maybe it's only 1 this year.
So it's not 1.4 of last year's budget, it's the CPI they're basing it on.
Well, it's 1.4% of the ad valorem tax based on a really complicated formula. I would, if you go out, I have this down here, so let me. Okay. Let's see here. Here is municipal services. So they're having budget workshops this month. I haven't been to ours yet. I'm going to the one in Topeka. So if anything comes out a great deal different than they've got on their website, I'll let you know. Roger, however, went to the one in Iola for Southeast Kansas. So he hasn't come up with anything, so I think we're okay. Now, down here is where they have the budget workshop pages for, and I'll show you this just because it's fun. I know it's a joke. So this is called the HB 2088 template. It is based on the law that was passed last year that talked about having to go to election or a year before. It's complicated, but here we're finally getting to the crux of this whole day. All right. So there are the general instructions. You put your stuff in the green areas, which aren't showing up here, but they are here. So they're saying on the certificate page, the city is going to put in the total tax levy amount, which is the ad valorem tax amount for 2017. I'll show you where they get those numbers. The next thing is the crucial thing. They are going to be taking out the money levied for other political subdivisions, and you are one. If you're a legally established public library, your ad valorem dollar amount on the levy sheet for 2017 is subtracted here. So you need to know, because your city may not know yet, that when they figure this computation page to find out how many bucks they can raise in tax dollars, they take you out at the very beginning. Then they go through all these adds and subtracts. And it comes down with a dollar amount that they can raise without going to election. And then, and see how these all have different amounts of money. It's just incredible. Then, and you can't see this. There's the green section. You see this bottom line here? So over here, total increased tax amount over here is a number. When they get all done, it comes up in hand, it calculates it so you can't figure it on your own, how much money the city can raise without going to election. Then they put your money for the next year in. So you're not in their calculation at all. They should never say to you something, well, we're going to have to reduce your budget because of this law. It's not so. Very important to know this.
And if they will convert to that as the tax rate.
Right. The tax lid is going to make us do this. Nope. We come out at the top. You go in after they already know how much they can raise. You're not the party responsible for them going to election. And so I would make a couple, me personally, if I were in your shoes as a library director, I know that they can go up 1.4% on their ad valorem tax. I would go up at least 1.4%. I might go 1.5. But right? Yeah, I would look at what I did, what the property tax I asked them for last year was, just the property tax in 2017, and I multiply it by 0.015 or 0.014. And then you can at least say, we're on the ship with you together. All wrong. If they go to election, you go up too. But I mean, you know, part of this is saying we're part of the team. So if you increase property taxes 1.4%, you'll qualify for state aid all over the place.
Right, and the reason that it's so important to know this is because if the city says, well, we can't increase your budget because we've got this tax lid and we can't increase it more than 1.4%.
It's a misunderstanding on their part about how that's, see, the municipality really has a hard time totally recognizing you as your own political entity. You are a quasi-municipal corporation, you're a political subdivision.
The real reason that it's important that you watch this and that your city understands it because they may need a new fire truck, and so in order for them to fit under that 1.4, they're going to want to lower everybody else's budget. If the library budget does not stay the same, at least the same, if it is lowered even by $1, it could be that you're not, the city is not showing maintenance of effort, you won't qualify for state aid, and you won't qualify for state grant.
Right.
So it's important for you to monitor this.
And the only caveat is the total city valuation actually went down.
Right.
Yes.
If you lost a big business in town or something else
Okay.
that lowers the valuation, then it could go down. So,
Right.
but
But that's the legal way it can go down.
All right.
Yes.
I'm going to show you what a city budget looks like, and you're going to understand why they get headaches. Okay.
And that's why we bring cookies.
Yeah. So they have probably 6 or 7 pages of instructions, and it's color coded. They have 3 input sheets that they have to put information in. It also, when they do that, fleshes out things that are going to be important for you. You want a copy of the certificate page. of that budget before they approve it. You wanna see this before it goes to council for approval or gets in the newspaper. You wanna ask them pretty please. Some people don't care, other people do. I can't tell you what your city manager is like. It's why you establish a year-round relationship with them, but you wanna make sure that for the library, there, when it comes over to the far, why isn't it, oh, I see, I'm making this. There it is, it's over here. So when you get over here, and I'm not sure why that happened. All right, let's promote that. All right, you see this column that says amount of ad valorem tax? And there's the library. So right here in that column should be the amount of property tax you asked for. If it's not, you want to pump them down. All right. You also are going to want motor vehicle money is figured automatically for you, and you notice that it's based on last year, but you see all these motor vehicle taxes here. Yeah, you're getting it. All right. So that's a page to look at, but it's going to, that one is much more automatic. This way. Do you see the nice fat red tab? It's one of the few red tabs in the whole budget. And it is the library grant page. And this comes from their input. The current year and the proposed year taxes go in here. If you're equal or the same, if you're the same or more, you qualify. The second test is, did the assessed valuation for your property stay the same, go up, or go down? In that case, if your property values declined in your community, but you kept the same mill levy rate, you would qualify.
You only have to pass
Yeah,
one of the
these,
tests.
those two tests.
Passing both is awesome, but you only have to pass one.
That does mean you're not going to get as many tax dollars, but they will make an exception if your community is in a catastrophic economic situation. Because honestly, you're not going to be increasing your taxes in that setting anyway. You're going to do all you're going to holding your own head above water be an act. Yes, sir.
Okay, so what this means is that if you pass one of these two tests, both of them, you will get state aid.
Right.
And you're saying to yourself, well, the state aid is more than $250 or less. But remember, if you don't pass state aid, you also don't get the grant.
And
That's the reason why it's important.
And you can know this by November. You can know ahead of time,
Oh, yes, you'll know.
way
this.
ahead of time, so that in January, we're not in a panic. You can know this by November, whether you pass one or both of the tests, then you can breathe easy. Because if you haven't, you don't pass both tests, call us, but what we'll do is we'll talk you through it, and you'll go to your city and you'll say, because I've not passed both of these tests,
Yeah.
here's how much money the library is gonna lose. And often, it's not a huge amount, it might be $400, and the city will make up that difference out of the general fund, so you don't lose several $1,000s.
This page for them is filled out. If you can just, this is where the more you know that city clerk, city manager, the better off you are. Because you can ask them to make sure they look at the red tab and make sure you qualify, so they can avoid conversations and problems that are on down. Because they're going to hear from the state library. You're going to hear from the state library. You're going to have some negotiation, and there's some financial impact. So you can say, hey, George, if you could just really make sure we qualify on one of those two tests, it's essential. Because it makes the X number of dollar difference to our library. good conversation to have ahead of time.
Okay, and let me say one thing, the city of Great Bend did not have this done till the next to the last day of the year.
Yes.
I could not go into it until then. So, and it got me in trouble. I did something that I found in trouble because I couldn't do this.
Yeah, and so if we can keep this in the upper levels of civility, you're better off. If you notice here on this blank form, you're doing algebra. You're solving for X. X is the property tax, the ad valorem tax that you need for the budget. So based on the numbers from the county treasurer, you will have the things in yellow on the motor vehicle taxes. There will be dollars in there. What I'm telling you in budget planning is to look at 2017 and make them the same or slightly higher. I think the economy has picked up enough that you could hold it the same or go up just a little bit, because I think people are buying vehicles. How much you get depends on how many new cars you have pulling in anyway.
So that's in the debt services
But,
library.
yeah, the debt service is the top of the page, the library's information is the bottom of that page. So anyway, the key here is, I love to see this when this sits at zero or as close to zero as it can, which means the city kicked out all the tax money they collected for you last year. This is something to watch, because if they don't, it can grow. Like, yes, maybe. What do you do if they keep it? Well, you have to be able to find them. I'll talk a little bit about Mankato and give you some strategies. You're going to want to, this is up in the income line. So if I want to clean that out for darn sure, I'm going to make sure that the expenditure line is equal to the sum total of all the income. So I'm going to get down here and I'm going to have total receipts, and that's everything but ad valorem tax. So I'm going to take this dollar, I'm going to, you play with it. Put a number in there. You want a zero-based budget. You want that expenditure number high enough that they have to give you absolutely everything at the top to make it work. And that expenditure amount is called this is your budget limit tax authority. You can't spend any more than that, whatever number shows up there, in tax dollars. Every other flavor can be spent, but you can't spend any more. So if you accidentally got more money, tax money, than this dollar amount here, you have to hold it back and spend it the next year. Very, very rarely have I ever seen it happen. One place that I did see it happen had a major tax disputed amount that got resolved, and it came in as delinquent tax, passed on through, and they couldn't spend it all. But I have almost never seen that happen, because this total would mean you got 100% of everything up above that you estimated. And that almost never happens. Okay. Last thing here, so that you need the library page. And the other thing, here, you notice these red tabs, these are budget warnings. These are when the city clerk is doing this budget, she screws something up that's going to get her in legal trouble. They get a red tab, they get a tab warning, a red tab warning, and then they know to fix it before they publish it. So here is the notice of budget hearing. And what you're going to see here is it's going to have the library on it. It's going to have 2016, 2017, the proposed budget for 2018. And there's going to be an ad valorem tax dollar amount there, and an estimated levy rate. The reason they call it estimated is because they have not done final valuation. Down here on the bottom of the page, you'll see valuations. So now let's get back to this. Okay, I printed off this because it did not work well. This is the city of Mankato, but I gave you the 4 pages right here. This is the certificate page. Point number 1, they do have the statute amount. This is what's turned into municipal accounts and reports without the county clerk's column filled out. That often happens. The county clerk, however, has a column that they fill out and actually has your current levy rate in it. So when this goes up online, if you don't know what your actual levy rate is, you need to talk about it. If you look here, so it's a library, it would have a value rate. And you notice down here at the bottom where it's got, where is it? They didn't put it here. I can always count on them. Somebody did not put everything there. But the key here is you can see your ad valorem rates. So in 2017, their ad valorem rate for the library, their property tax amount of money was $15,620. I would tell Mankato to go multiply that times 0.014 and ask for that much money at least. So that's one chink in your budget block. That's the property tax block. Now, the next page that I had for you shows the library budget all blown up. And I actually like this one because I'm not sure why they do this. Maybe you guys can tell me, but they show it as a contract. Do you know why Mankato would show that as a contract? I was going to ask. Often, if you're on this page, because you can't see where that came out awful, too late to change it, but you see where it says contract down here? Most often they have operating expense. It says library. It has a one-word thing. They don't care.
Would that be possibly additional?
Well, they might be looking at it as a contract.
Or line item money that is like above what mill levy would actually
No,
They
Not on this
share a
page.
rec building,
right.
does it have something to do with
Well, it
that?
might be why they think it's a contract. But actually, this is the tax dollars. This is the general fund budget authority amount. So they can't spend total expenditures more than $18,798. That's their budget expenditure. Okay, now you notice how they only had $88 they carried over. Okay, so they got, I'm guessing, they got $88 worth of motor vehicle money that didn't get dispersed in December. If this amount goes much over $100, it's way too much money. So, if you think about this, back to her question about how much to ask for. So when you're planning your budget, if you notice the amounts of motor vehicle money didn't vary much between 2016 and 2017. You look at that, you look in those columns, the same amount of money, the estimate didn't change. Maybe I use those same dollar amounts when I'm planning my budget, so I know how much, when I'm filling in those squares on a budget, I need every one of those dollars. The one thing I will tell you also is that they have 0 for delinquency, and I wouldn't let that happen that way. If you notice, they got money. Well, now they show they didn't get any money in 2016, which I almost got it. I think that was probably an error on the city.
So in 15 and 16, they kept the whole bunch of them.
Yeah, not a good idea. Took a while to come down. I'd like to know what happened to it, but they came down. I would say they had a city manager change. New library.
They
New
did
library.
have-
If you show you're paying attention to these things and talking about it, sometimes you don't have to ask for it, you'll not be better. But I would, because when I'm saying, when they give you money, you want to this breakdown here, you want that every time you get tax money. You want it in January or February. You want it in March. You want it in late May, early June. You want it in September. You want it in October. You want it in December. I want to know what the breakout of this check is. How much in each one of these pews. Because as you're accounting for it, you're tracking it, so you know. Okay? So it sounds like a lot of extra work, but if you just do it when the one check comes in, you only get 5 checks. So, I mean, you know, or maybe some of you get 4, some of you get 6. But just do that and kind of keep track of it, because you can't build a budget if you don't know these numbers. Or you're gonna go in and say, I want $50,000. And they're gonna go, okay, $50,000 less the motor vehicle money, that's how they're gonna work it.
Or worse, the city tells you how much they're gonna give you. That's how cities are nice, and they're not gonna give you less, but they're not, that's not how it works.
But so the question to ask when they say, here's how much we're going to give you, is that all tax income? Is that just ad valorem tax, or what, you know, make them talk to you about it. But don't make very clearly that you're saying, I'm estimating that the total tax revenue I need from the city is X. Of that, this dollar amount is property tax. And that is the amount I need levied. Is this dollar amount for property tax. Phrase it in very clear language, sweetly, with an expectation that this is by golly going to happen. Next page is that library budget page. I don't like how that looks, so we'll go to the important brownies. We're going to talk this through. You see how they qualified on both sections of this for 2017? That's that red tab. And so that means they get state aid and they get their grants, and I'll click your heels and go home team. Okay, here's the one that went in the paper. Important thing I will point out to you about this is, if I were the librarian in Mankato, I would be working with my board to get an employee benefit fund instituted for my library. Because if you notice, the city has one. Okay. And that means you figure out how much the employee half of Social Security is, and Medicare is, work comp, unemployment insurance, maybe a retirement if you have one, health insurance if you should be so blessed. And you levy to cover those things, like Osage City did in the yellow part of that budget. So you're not having to raise it out of the general fund. You keep the general fund growing for other things besides employee benefits. Salaries come out of the general fund. But they have an employee benefit fund. They have one they're actually levying in. They understand the value and the utility of an employee benefit fund. As far as the tax lid goes, because it's on the general fund. So that's how employee benefit funds really came into big use, was back in the 80s, early 90s, you know, when the tax lid went in for everybody. This is one of the ways people got around the pinch, was because they could put employee benefits in its own levy that didn't have a cap. The law says you have to levy enough to cover your benefits.
And not only that, it can never be rescinded.
Right.
Once they pass it, they can't.
You can choose not to levy in it, but it never goes away. So they're levying in it. So if I'm the librarian in Mankato, I'm probably not gonna be able to get it done this year. I'm sure working on this for 2019 because this is a city that operates that way. Little things you pick up when you look at this. Now, do you see the valuations down here? This is where you see the valuations. And let's see. What else do I need to tell you? If you need a walk through from this, I think anybody in your CKLS could walk you through. If you have a question, you want to shoot me an email, I'll answer them. It seems unfair that you need to understand their budget and they don't have to understand yours. But it's important. It's really, 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 really. Okay. Hi, this is my favorite Farsight cartoon. Just resonates. You know, these are the people that talk to you at church, in the grocery store, give you books at ball games. You're marked. Your board's marked, act like it. So, if I were going to tell a story, if I'm going to go make an ask, put it in a story format. If you're just going to read numbers to them, they're bored. So, I don't want you to be late, and I want you out early, and I think I'm pushing it. So, you go through and read this list. These are the facts about this library. Kind of dry, kind of boring, kind of painful. But important, this is a lot like what you do on a librarian's report. Had so many circulations, whatnot. Okay, if I want to tell that as a story, we save taxpayers that much money. That's on the average cost of a book times the collection circulation they had. How you get that number. Take the tax support divided by per population, divided by household. Get a library use calculator in place, then you can make these kinds of statements. That has a lot more power than we circulated 52,492 books. It just does. And if you have costs on the computer, you know, there's all sorts of ways you can come up with that in a story. Give them always an annual report. If you don't do one, start now. That's another way of telling the story. OCLC has a lot of good graphics and things that for you to think about. There are more libraries than there are McDonald's. Can't say that about Starbucks, but there are more libraries than there are McDonald's. They put these things in some interesting ways, and that's in the handout. You can get really fancy and talk about social return on investment. You can get the library calculators to help you give return on investment numbers. And if any of these links don't, I think I checked them all. So there's a library calculator. And they can go in if they borrowed money, you're putting in the value behind the scenes. So they go in and maybe keep track, or in a one transaction, they could go in and put that in, and yeah, that's what saved me $300. As Joe Butler would say, don't talk about how much money you saved in terms of taxes. It's a cost. What is it? She says cost savings. You didn't have to incur that cost. Legislators, yes, you avoided spending that much money. That's it. We tend to talk about we saved you this much money, but it's cost avoidance. You avoided having to spend that. Somehow that's legislative speak. part of example of what the problem is. I like this report. It's older, but it's the truth. You guys squeeze a penny harder than anybody I know. So part of this is a pride thing. Don't take the back. You spend public sector dollars better than anyone. You're more responsive and more responsible. So just wear that, darn it. So practical things that you can do. Make a list of things that the city does and that you do. What can you do to help them get their goal? If you're doing a strategic plan, I can tell you right now, your city probably has one. If you weren't part of the planning process, get that plan and see what you can do to help them meet their plan. That's part of your plan. You write it out. Do you do voter registration? Do you sell pet, dog tags, cat tags? You're open more hours than they are. At times people are working or around. You're open in the evening. So if people have to drive out of town, can't get to City Hall. They'll stop off the county. So I want somebody to do this and send me a picture. I would love to know the public impact of this. Get a city council wall somewhere as a display. Map of the city with the wards or sections, whatever you call them, picture of the person, brief bio that they give you, contact information. Put it up there. The city manager, be good or bad, when they meet. But that's you're saying this is a good thing. We're part of the public good here. We're going to make this easy for you. So toot their horn a little bit. The trick is we want you off the menu. Have you heard that expression about if you're not at the table, you're on the menu? So if you're not at that table being seen as an equal partner in the pursuit of public good, you're the one that they're going to look to be the special of the day. You want to be at the table. This quote is what guides all your budget planning. I can't say it strongly enough. You have to know your stuff. There's no excuse for your board and you're the experts on your library. You have to know where your stuff fits in their stuff, how your stuff impacts their stuff, and why your stuff matters to your community. That's all telling that story. So budget numbers is not just sitting in a corner with a pencil with a big eraser. This is interacting in your community. Your budget is your story of your library, your plan of your library in action. So anything I could do to help make that a better process, fine. I'd love to talk to you. Apple students will be talking more. Getting an idea of your homework, aren't you? Yeah. That's the whole outfit. I'm sorry. It's quirky, I know, but the whole point is I want you to smile through this process. So there's my contact information, the last page. Start with your system people. You have excellent system people. They work very hard at doing a very good job for you. So I think you should give them a hand. How about that? We made it a little early. I'm going to note it down. The good side of the ledger. It's only 1 hour.
Right.
Huh?
It's 2 1
Well, it's 2 1-hour sessions. So, you know, you can let your mind.
Laura, did you say you're from Kentucky? What was your name then?
Meyer.